Final topic here that I want to talk to you guys about is one that was brought up a little bit before the show, and I don't think I have to mention too much to this community about how there's been some drama that's occurred in some networks. Yeah, it's unfortunate to see, but it leads to a conversation of how should networks be structured. And I think both of you guys, before we started the stream, brought up good points. I'm sort of just gonna sit and comment on some of the things that you guys say, take a bit of a moderator status here, but who wants to start here with that discussion? What do you guys envision is the best way that independent media channels should structure themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I can go first if you want.
Yeah.
As you guys know, kind of my philosophy is that we do a lot of smaller networks that don't try to bring all the networks together under an umbrella. Now, that doesn't mean that I exclude that idea. I want both. I want, ideally, the best way I see for us to take out the TYTs and the David Doles and the Mike Figueredos of the world is kind of in a Marxian style co opt. And the way that I see it is that we don't have any centralized leadership, and we all create our own channels and kind of bounce off of each other's channels and cross pollinate. And I didn't make this stuff up. I already saw it happening, and I kind of just
Yeah,
name. And what I try to do.
we're killing it with the collaborations.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you do with this is that if you pump each other, but also kind of self-correct in a way that I do on my show, is that you'd have an entity that is made up of hundreds or maybe even eventually thousands of channels that bounce off of each other and kind of keep an eye on each other in a way so that we make sure we fact check each other. And so what I like to do is my recommendation for the channel that you're talking about, I talk to them regularly. I've been on their show multiple times, and I commend them for how they handled their recent drama that they had. They did it in a very humane and wonderful way that is going to, I think, help them in the future rather than hurt them. Is that those channels that are run by 5 or 6 or maybe even as many as 10 people, those should be hubs that we come together for and have like roundtables, and then they're run by a select handful of people that maybe do their own content on that channel, but they have guests come in and they give them platforms, and then the people that are on these channels also do some work on the side. The Gray Zone does this, for instance. Like the Gray Zone it's Blumenthal and Anya Parampil and Aaron Mate and Ben Norton, and they all upload stuff to the Gray Zone, but then all of those people have their own channels. Max Blumenthal has Foreign Agents. Ben Norton has Propaganda Today. Aaron Mate has Pushback, right? And so my idea is that nobody has all of their work consolidated to one single hub, and they do their own stuff on the side, so that if there ever happens to be disagreement on where a channel goes in terms of like the content you're putting out, or the even just the overall vision for what you want for the channel, if you guys butt heads, then it doesn't become so inherently dramatic, because you can just go, oh well, we can agree to disagree. I'm going to do my own thing for a little bit here, and then I'll come back and bounce off of this channel when I need to. But again, it's not antithetical to the idea of Political Fight Club to have those collection channels that have 5 or 6 people running them and that are constantly doing roundtables and getting 5, 6, 7, 10 people on there at once. But I also want to see people, and I want to encourage people that aren't currently in the YouTube sphere to do their own. And I've proven, if anything, I've proven with Political Fight Club is that all you really need is an iPhone and some good takes,
That's
and
how I
people will,
started.
and some people will listen to you. So what I want to do is bring as many people into this as possible and network with no real centralized leadership. But again, Kamali, I'm not at all against the model of the channel that we're talking about right now. I think that's absolutely necessary to what I'm talking about. But go ahead, lay it out. Paint me a word picture.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I think that we're all friends of, of the folks over there. We've all, comrades, absolutely, really love, respect all of them, and appreciate what they, how they handled the situation, swiftly and restored justice in that case. And so, all that is commendable. Really, what we're talking about here is just how we, as leftists, media, entities moving forward, how we can use this as a learning lesson, and to try to build better structures so that we can, the justice isn't just restorative but transformative, right? So that we can change the systems, so we can build better systems, so that we don't end up like the next TYT. Because I think that TYT, is an institution, that an organization that started out with probably, with some solid ideas. I mean, I used to watch TYT back in the day. It's how I crossed along my political journey. They were a stepping stone along that political journey to the true left. And so I think that, they may have gone in with all the best intentions, although we know, the head of TYT is pro-capitalist. Cenk, Uyghur says that he's a capitalist himself. He believes, he is pro-capitalist. And so I think that as socialists, as leftists, we need to think about the way that we relate to one another. And so I just think that, my model and what I would recommend for folks is, I do support anyone that wants to do a channel on their own, because one, it's just easier, typically to start out that way. Especially, I think that, when you're starting out, it's not like you're going to be able to amass a group of people that are willing to, like get together and commit to this work in that way. It's very tough, so folks starting out on their own, I think, is really, admirable and want to be encouraged. Everybody should put their voice out there and deserves to be heard. No one person more than any other. And so, but the real model that I think moving forward that we need to start to look after, and the reason I talk about this and I'm such a strong advocate for this is because I think that the real power that we have in independent left media is not necessarily in what we're talking about every day. I think, in the same way that we were talking about, these folks that are like pointing fingers outside at foreign places, and how the U.S. government always wants to do that in these institutions. Our media, mainstream media, wants to point the finger outward at the outside things, the factors that they don't have as much control over. Those things are important to discuss. We need platforms. We need people that are discussing that. That's the way that we pull people over to our side. So we absolutely need to be talking about the news of the day, the political commentary. We got to be, talking about these hot button issues, and we should definitely be doing that. But I think that the real, revolutionary change that we can make is in the way that we organize ourselves. Because as socialists, as leftists, I think that we need to do everything that we can to sort of push back against, any kind of hierarchical structuring or anything like that, but also to try to build community, right? And to try to be in community with one another. And one of the things that I think that the independent left media space will be lacking if we do too many individual organizations and not having, larger organizations, is a lack of labor power, right? We don't really have, we'll be in community, we can collaborate all we want, but we don't really have any significant labor power when we're all our own individual bosses per se, and we're not coordinated in that way, right? When there isn't as much coordination and cooperation as we would like to see. And so I think that the way that I would like to see people relate is to, yes, build networks, because I think that the only way that we're going to compete with and really take down a TYT, to be honest, and because we need a replacement for TYT. And this is about building dual power and building up the institution that we'd like to see replace TYT. And I think that we can start to do that, with networks like MCSC and, Fred Hampton Leftists and these other collective groups. There is power in collectivism, right? There's power in community and in collectivism. And what I'd like to see out of it is just a model of democracy that is certainly not minoritarian like what we have in the United States government, not majoritarian like we see in what most people are sort of typically used to. It's like, majority vote, if 50% of the people plus one, votes in favor of a measure, then that measure passes, even if that leaves 49% of people with a bad taste in their mouth, not feeling good about the decision. And I think that that's the problem that we always meet up with majoritarian democracy. So the real democracy that I'd like to see established inside of these worker cooperatives, these collectives, is a model of democratic consensus. And that model of democratic consensus pretty much says, we do not move forward with a proposal or a measure. Everybody doesn't have to agree on it, but nobody can outright disagree on it. Nobody can absolutely reject this proposal, and we move forward. So democratic consensus requires that you find consensus among that. That typically, it works in smaller groups, less than, about 15 to 20 people, typically within a sort of democratic consensus. And then you have sort of groups that then join together and use like a model of confederalism, where they then, meet find consensus amongst themselves, and then send representatives up to another organization to then find consensus among the larger body, right? And in consensus, every single person gets to have their voice heard. Any single person can block a measure from going forward, and that, I think, avoids a lot of the issues where sometimes only one person out of 100 is right on an issue, and if that one person out of 100 is right, they should, and they feel strongly about it, they should have the power to stop something bad from happening. And so I think that would have benefited, in this case, but not even focusing on this one case, I think that it would benefit all the networks we sort of are a part of. And in doing so, I think that we set an example for people moving forward of how to build, post-capitalist structures, because it's hard work to do. It's slower. Finding consensus is a slower process. But you know what? Like, having the capitalist hierarchical majoritarian democracies may be a little bit faster, but we've seen where that has brought us, and sometimes that so-called efficiency isn't always so efficient, like we were just talking about in the case of the vaccine development, and the rush to do something isn't always what is most effective and most safe for everyone else. So what I'd like to see is a model of democratic consensus. I urge everyone to to look into it, to check it out, to learn how it works. First thing that it requires is everybody to understand the process. And it's just a process whereby everyone can voice their concerns, can voice their reservations, or can outright block a measure from happening. And until you have to continue to just do the work of convincing people, informing people, and until people feel properly informed on any measure, on any proposal from passing, they have to be not in the position of blocking it, which every single member has the right to do. And so it prevents, it gives everybody that same veto power, and prevents a sort of majority rule, the tyranny of the majority, as they like to try to, say from minoritarian democracies, they like to use the fear of tyranny of the majority. But really, there is a tyranny of the majority when sometimes you can have factions developed within democratic institutions. And if you just build a large enough faction, for instance, in America, right, you pretty much, under majority democracy, as long as all white people agree to something, in majority democracy, they can move forward with those measures. The minority voices are not heard out, right? They don't need to be heard out. They don't need them. And that's why Joe Biden can tell you that you ain't black if you don't vote for Joe Biden. And he doesn't give a damn, because there's no sweat off of his back, because he just got to convince enough white folks, and just, get enough of them on board, or just, scare you with, well, what are you going to do? Go vote for them. But under democratic consensus, it says that even if one person, a minority person, there's only one woman in an organization, or one, queer person, or whatever the case might be, or just one person that is on the right side of history, that person's voice can be properly heard out. They can voice their objections, and until they are convinced, we do consensus in things like even on our criminal court, in criminal juries, you have to reach consensus on a verdict, or else the verdict doesn't pass, right? It has to be unanimous. And so it doesn't mean that everyone necessarily agrees with something. You can voice your reservations. You can also say, I stand aside, meaning I'm not going to help implement this thing, but I'm also not going to block it. And I think that it's the model that we could all benefit from moving forward in developing these sort of democratic institutions. And then I think that we would avoid the shit that TYT got into with their union busting and all that BS. It's not about coming up with rules or controlling people's speech. You're not going to be voting on measures like that. It's not like some Survivor-esque thing, like voting people off the island or anything like that. You first and foremost develop a constitution through democratic consensus, where you lay out all the rules of associating with this organization, and it allows people the freedom to associate and dissociate. If you find yourself blocking measure after measure, then you just disassociate. You can freely disassociate from this organization, and you get out of there. And so I think that that's the model that I'd really like to see moving forward. And I really am just trying to go out there and do the work to try to help as many people and push as many people to learn about it. A great video by Saint Andrewism on YouTube, and postmodernism. I think I'll have to find who the second guy is. It's not postmodernism, sorry. It's like post comprehension or something like that. But check out Saint Andrewism's video on democratic consensus, and I think it'll give you a good, strong, solid understanding. And it's the model of democracy I'd like to see implemented on the left moving forward.
Oh yeah.
Go
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I like how the way things are heading right now. Like we are, like right now, TYT's views are so low. Like they're becoming so irrelevant. People are hungry for fresher voices like like ours. And right now, the way things are structured, there's the channels are decentralized. Right, people are coming out. You have more freedom as an individual to make choices for what you want for your channel. With the MCSC network, it's like if you get some benefits in terms of like there's more developed channels that can help promote you more based on the association. They can give you some advice, some tips, and all, sometimes resources, interview recommendations, and all that. So there can be some benefit. There are benefits to forming networks, but as it's going right now, I think things are naturally panning out like how they should be. Yeah, Robert, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, and I'm not against that whatsoever. Again, I think that we can do both, and I think we have to do both. And whatever, if you're out there listening right now, whatever you want for your channel, just do that. If you want to do it with a buddy, as you guys know, I have a friend who I have on regularly, who I just debate with about whatever. So I think we need to do both. And in fact, I am in the works right now, talking with some people behind the scenes on another network that we're going to kind of create, and I'm going to be doing my own show, Political Fight Club, on the side, but then I'm also going to be doing a show for them. So I definitely am not against that whatsoever, and I think we absolutely have to do both. And I do appreciate what you did, Kamali. I saw you reach out to the Fred Hampton leftists on Twitter. I read your the letter you wrote to them. I think that's wonderful. And you're right. They only ran into this because they didn't quite have like a constitutional structure on how to deal with it. But they're learning, and they learned their lesson. And I think now if they adopt what you recommended, they won't have this issue whatsoever. So, and I think they're going to be much stronger coming through this than they were even beforehand. But yeah, I would love to see nothing but whatever kind of channel. If you're a lefty out there and you have a voice, do whatever style you want to do. And then what we'll all do is collaborate behind the scenes. And in fact, I am going to be, without a doubt, joining a channel here pretty soon. We'll see what happens. I'll let you guys know. But there's some decently big names that are thinking about doing something similar to Mikasa Sukasa or Fred Hampton Leftist right now. And like I said, I think word on the street is that Compton Jay is going to also kind of branch out and do his own network called the Populist Voice Network. So he's going to be like one of the OGs at Fred Hampton Leftist, but also doing his own show, which is also springboarding other people. So it's like, dude, let's not pigeonhole ourselves whatsoever. Let's create this hive mind of lefties that will kind of progress the narrative that we all kind of more or less agree on anyway. We'll self-correct through what I always do is like diss tracks, where like if something is really incorrect in one of my comrades' videos, I will respond to it publicly. But beyond that, man, let's not handicap ourselves in any way possible, man.
Depending on what it is too, because we can also reach out to each other privately and talk about it rather than sometimes making a video and then the other person may take too much offense. It's like, why didn't you just hit me up, man?
But I also think that you break the algorithm by conjuring up drama, and that's the only reason I do it, is because the algorithm is so against it. And I figure if there's one trick to beating the algorithm, it's like that you conjure up some sort of fight and drop a diss track. But like Jimmy Dore proved that with TYT. It's like, occasionally you gotta like conjure up a little bit of drama, otherwise you end up like Status Quo, where everything is like very boring and the views never go up, even though technically the journalism they're doing is very good. Americans like their entertainment. So that's part of Fight Club, as well as like the occasional diss track. And remember, I've only ever corrected other lefties like twice. I think I've gone after the Vanguard once on the ivermectin thing, and I mean, other than that, I called Jackson Hinkle's last debate with Dylan Burns like really, really, I don't know if you guys saw it. They were screaming at each other. I was like, this is just kind of childish. So I called out Jackson on that one. But other than that, the only people I regularly go after are like the too far gones. I go after TYT regularly. I went after Tim Black hardcore after he blamed all of the lefty YouTubers for Nina Turner's loss. And again, I see that as a battle worth fighting publicly. And then what I do,
it's punching up so it doesn't look bad, right?
And there's a weird thing that happens, guys. Like, you can have a conversation on a panel, and because you are face-to-face, so to speak, with people, sometimes you don't always get their exact honest take. The diss track that I do, it allows you a certain amount of distance, and in a way you let the people decide, the way that you see when, like, Eminem is beefing with Machine Gun Kelly. You let the viewers decide which video is correct and let them decide, for all intents and purposes, who's right on the substance. So you almost leave it up to the people in a way. But yeah, you're right. I don't go looking for trouble, especially on things that I don't think are worth picking a fight over. And of course, I talk to people behind the scenes. And as you guys can tell, I would never get combative with either of you, because I know you're good faith actors. The only people I go after are bad faith actors who are using bogus arguments, and I shine the world's biggest spotlight on the circus that they're putting on in front of me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think anybody's beyond reproach, and we should all be welcoming and inviting of criticism when we exactly. It's like when if I make missteps, we're human, right? We're all human. We're gonna have some bad takes. Everybody is liable to have at least a few bad takes along the way, and we're doing a disservice if we're not trying to reach out in community and try to correct those, try to help people, just through discussion and healthy debate, not necessarily devolving to the whatever happened with Jackson there on his show, which I'm not trying to pick on Jackson or anything like that.
No, he was fine on the substance. He just they were yelling at each other so much for 2.5 hours.
There's a lot to talk about there.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not getting a lot of value, which can be the problem with debates and that whole world and realm of online bread tube, sort of like the debate bro kind of thing. And so I just think that working cooperatively doesn't mean without criticism, without constructive critique of another person. And so we can collaborate, we can cooperate, but we should also critique each other when the time comes. If we have a bad take, somebody that I really admire recently had some terrible takes. Alexis Giondi, I have her book right behind me, and she has some terrible takes on some anti-China stuff, and it was just just straight up U.S. imperialism. And you got to be able to critique those folks. Even Cornel West, he was a pro Joe Biden kind of vote and then move him left afterward, push him to the left afterward. Noam Chomsky, these people are not beyond reproach. Nobody is should be heroicized in that way or anything like that. But I think that we can do that without having to necessarily compete, because the reality is of this space is that we are sadly, without even wanting to, having to compete for people's time and in their attention. And so if we tie together our economic futures a little bit tighter, I think that then we all benefit from these discussions that we have from each other, working in some sort of Confederate type model where all of us are contributing a few percentage of our revenue to a centralized fund, where we then democratically, through democratic consensus, get together and decide what we do with that mutual aid, whatever it might be, or helping each other build up something better. I think that we all stand to benefit from that, and give people that are not known right now a chance to come up and rise up. And so I think that, and like you said, also one size does not fit all. We need a multifaceted approach.
Yeah, this sounds to me like the golden age of hip hop. When there were a lot of rappers that were, it was decentralized, right? There's a bunch of different rappers that were coming out, and then sometimes some of these rappers would form an alliance. They'd form a group together, and then we got so many classic albums during that time, and the common goal there was to entertain people with lyricism and great production and all that. Here, our common goal is what?
So many.
Did you guys ever see the movie The Warriors? At the beginning, where Cyrus is trying to unite all the gangs to take down the oppressive police force.
No, but I should now.
You should watch it, man. You'll like it a lot. And then that first part, he's got 100 different gangs with 5 or 6 different members from each gang, all in the big crowd. And he goes, "Listen up, guys. We can either unite and start working through this together, and we have the numbers to destroy the oppressive system we have in front of us, or we can die as individual gangs. So what we can do is either survive or die. We can survive together or die as individuals." And I'm 100% for that first thing. Even the Crips and the Bloods decided to put their grievances aside when it came to the police brutality thing. They were on the same side of standing up to the police. If they can put their grievances aside and unite and against an oppressor, I think all of us absolutely can.
Put our differences aside.
And I think that's what got Fred Hampton assassinated. Essentially, was the fact that he was, they were afraid. They saw him uniting gangs like that and uniting, building that Rainbow Coalition, helping to unite people from, Latino, Black, white, wherever, immigrant, native, just people were uniting across, the one color we all share in common, which is green, and the lack thereof. And so, we can all unite behind that. And so, yeah, I think that's a real fear of the ruling class, is to see poor people getting together in unity and in solidarity. Yeah.
That's their true fear.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for us to take their power away. But also, we got to make sure that once we get there, we're actually going to be better than them. We're going to be more compassionate. Our consciousness is going to be higher, so that the same mistake does not happen again.
Yeah, one of the rules of Fight Club, the 7th rule of Fight Club is you cannot become corrupt or don't take any donations that are like corporate donations. I just call it don't sell out is the rule. And one of the other rules is admit when you're wrong. And all of the lefties seem pretty good about, like, if they have a bad take, usually they come out and they're like, oh, you know what, my subs talked to me. I had other people that were close to me that do other channels talk to me about this bad take. And a lot of them, the Fred Hampton leftists included, they admit they're wrong, and it makes you look, I mean, you're human. We're all human, right? Yeah. So there's no reason for your listeners to stop listening to you simply because you make a mistake here or there, so long as you don't double down on that mistake. So that's and I don't. Part of the reason I created Political Fight Club is I saw this unbelievably scary trend where all of the people that got me into politics to begin with in terms of YouTube all shifted towards the corporate side, and that includes everybody I've named tonight, including also Kyle Kalinske to a large extent as well. And it broke my heart to see them all sell out. So I'm trying to put into place like a fail-safe that makes sure that future YouTubers that are coming out of the woodwork don't go that same direction and realize they can be part of this beautiful, awesome, huge network that consumes those sellouts.
Yeah, and that's what my whole, this whole, trying to build a new structure. That's what transformative justice is all about, and trying to build new structures, new systems, so that we don't commit the same mistakes. I'm sure a lot of these people went in with the best of intentions, thinking that they were going to be the seeds of revolution, and slowly but surely, they shift over, little by little over to, the side of reformation, and they're no longer revolutionaries, and they just get sort of absorbed into the systems. You don't change systems change you. That's why we got to build up our own systems from the ground up. We can't rely on trying to change the political system in that way. We just got to build the new one and let the other one crumble around us, because the American empire is crumbling right now. And so we just got to build up the infrastructure. And that's what dual power is all about.
And don't be afraid to let your viewers and other YouTubers critique you in a way, especially if you make a mistake, because a lot of these people, they double down and then they end up, they go super corporate, and then they never listen to their viewers in trying to learn and be introspective and correct their rhetoric. So their channels end up going kind of like, they lose a lot of subs, they lose a lot of views and whatever. So if you allow yourself, and nobody's beyond reproach, if you allow yourself some critique, we can all move forward together. And that way, if anybody starts going down that path, the rest of us will dogpile them and be like, what the hell? Your rhetoric is suddenly so weird. Like, are you taking money suddenly? Like, what the hell is going on? But we would catch it. The rest of the net would catch those people that are starting to go down that road. And if I had my way, if they can't stop going down that road, then they would just simply kind of be ostracized the way that TYT is. And then their channel would more or less, they would just die.
It's becoming irrelevant.
Right, exactly. And that's okay with me, because I don't want people that are putting out bad information, who are McCarthyite smearing, slandering people like Aaron Mate for no reason. I don't agree with that behavior. So therefore, I would love to see a network that keeps each other in check. And if we have hundreds of us, eventually what would happen is everybody would be they'd be very receptive to bad takes, because there'd be so many other people that, in concern of their well-being and their future, would go, listen, man, why are you talking about stuff
after people's experience with Bernie and AOC, and now with Tulsi? People are waiting to catch all these personalities on independent media slipping up. They're like, hold up, you're not being consistent here. People are more vigilant now on whether they're being misguided. I wanted to add on to something here that Shadowban said. Personalities, in my opinion, are distractions from the issues. It should be about the reasons for why you like the personalities, right? It should be about the ideas, the information that they're bringing, how objective they're being in their analysis. That's what it should be, and on the information that's being presented. But don't idolize anybody. It should be about the
cult
issues.
of celebrity has no place on the left. We have to
Agreed.
destroy any sort of cult of celebrity here on the left. And I'm telling, like, I have a list of research topics that I have right now. I've been writing down. You see me looking down and jotting stuff all night. That from information from that Franco and Robert have shared here. Like, this is what we disagree. We didn't agree on everything, but what we disagreed on gives me room to, and all of us room to grow, to learn, to try to do better research, to learn more. I got a whole ton of things, lists of stuff. Like, look at this, just papers worth of stuff to go and research and find out more about, because this is what, we should all be. We got to build up our media literacy, and we should be excited to learn new things and have our positions and our ideas challenged. That's what makes us stronger, all, cooperatively and collectively. So I love doing stuff like this and talking with people that I don't agree with on everything. We shouldn't all surround ourselves in bubbles like that. It's really good and to challenge ourselves in this way. So thank you to both of you for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I had a
Yeah.
blast.